the biggest trade show that fosters the escape room industry is called Transworld, and it is a haunted industry. If you walk through the place at night, it's creepy because there are disemboweled bodies like all over the place, all fake.
Okay, so you were actually at this at you said Trans World. Essentially, you're like, here's kind of the cogs in the machine. We give you everything you need to build the machine.
Yeah, we get all the guts. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Altium OnTrack podcast. I am Zach Peterson, your host, and today I am going to be talking with Gabriel Goldstein, former owner of Anidia Engineering and Escape Room Tech. We'll be talking about some of the work that he's done in those two areas, and it should be a really fun discussion. I think some of the stuff that he's worked on is pretty interesting, and I'm hoping some folks in the audience will also find it quite interesting. Gabriel, thanks so much for joining us, and I guess I should say thanks for joining us again. You
Oh yeah, yeah. Thanks, Zach. Thanks for having me. It's always fun to kind of do this kind of stuff. Uh, yeah. So let's see. So I was about 5 years old, and I kind of knew I was going to be an engineer. There really wasn't a whole lot of other uh, other ways I was going to go at that point. And so all through life, I was very much a tinkerer and built lots of things, experimented, uh, and then got a computer engineering degree from University of Central Florida in 2001. And yeah, from there, I had a really cool job doing kind of skunk work stuff for a local laser company, and then eventually, uh, went to school there. So wanted to kind of leave town. Um, Couple skips and a jump. I was at a startup that failed. No, not mine, but one I was part of. And because my parents are entrepreneurs and my grandparents were all entrepreneurs, I guess said it's time to start my own company. So I started Anidia Engineering. I started off working with mostly inventor types and stuff like that. So that's where the an idea bit came from, and that was a lot of fun for a good bit. I mean, really, from a technical standpoint, it was brilliant. I had a ton of blast doing the whole thing for nearly 20 years. Along that path, I guess about 6 years ago at this point, I had someone approach me and said, I need you to build this thing for an escape room. And I said, I have no idea what that is, but fine, I'll write you a proposal. And she's like, yeah, this is way too much. I just need one. And by that time, I kind of had what I'll credit as one of my true entrepreneurial epiphanies. It said, escape rooms. This is a business that I can really get my mind around, learn how to, spend $1 and make $2 kind of a mentality. And because the engineering stuff was always kind of up and down, just depends on, markets and where we were and what was hot at the moment. So yeah, then slowly pivoted the company to a lot of escape room type work, and that was a nice big boom for a good couple of years. And then still did engineering stuff, of course, alongside of all of it. And then COVID hit and kind of crashed that pretty quickly. And then slowly afterwards, decided to ramp down into engineering as well. But that is a brief summary of the arc of those two companies.
Sure. So, with doing quantity one, or a lot of, low volume, it sounds like you may have been doing like a lot of off-the-shelf modules. Was it a lot of custom boards? Were you using like, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, BeagleBone, one of those platforms?
Sure. So most of our customers, when we first started out, and really for the majority of the time, were interested in small to low volume production. When I first started doing this, Arduino did not exist. Like that was off completely off the table. Everything we started off, if there was really wanted just a proof of concept type design, it was bare metal, write code, and spin a custom board. I never really wanted to be into the prototype world. I always wanted to make things that people planned on or reasonably had a plan to make more of. So, really, I mean, one of our first designs we did, I guess the first really big design we did was it was an ARM 9 16 megs of RAM. That was a lot back then. Running Linux. It was a PDA style PDA style learning device. I mean, that was I typically bit off a lot more than I could chew and figured it out, and that was actually the blast of the entire experience. Later on, especially when we got into some of the escape room stuff, we leveraged the Arduino ecosystem immensely. Uh, there was a lot of that kind of, um, I mean, there's a good 15 years in that gap in evolution of consumer electronics or hobby electronics, I should say, and that was definitely more the scene. In fact, the first product that we developed for escape room techs was effectively, here is a better way to use your Arduino, as an Arduino compatible, but having proper electrical specifications to it, as opposed to the hobby stuff, which really wasn't meant to really be in production use.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is with, escape room stuff, like what is production use? Because I'm kind of trying to wrap my head around like what kind of stuff do you need to make for an escape room? I can only imagine that it's like, I guess you kind of imagine like, okay, there's security cameras, but you're buying those off the shelf. Maybe there's like electronic locks or something. There's some sort of sensor element there. It's I've never done an escape room. Just
Okay.
confession here, so I don't
Right.
know what's going on in there.
Yeah, so I mean, at the very basics, like when people started adding electronics to escape rooms, there certainly was a lot from the security sector that was being leveraged. Keypads, right? Very simple thing. Keypads and maglocks are like the staple of escape rooms. You solve some puzzle, you get four numbers, and they're correlated by color and some other kind of thing in the room, and it's like, okay, so it's 5923, and you run over to the keypad, and you see 5923, you type that in, and of course, like most people can pick up the instruction on that and say, okay, I need a timer that's normally closed, and when you hit this button, it disengages the mag lock for 10 seconds, and then the magic door opens, right? You can go to the next room. That was like that obviously doesn't involve me. People were doing that, from day one. Read switches, alarm contacts, that kind of stuff was very much in the mix. Where things were getting more complicated and where we really first stepped in, even on the first time, was with like RFID. So, yeah, you can buy a lot of RFID stuff, but it wasn't really accessible by a lot for most people. You had either kind of sophisticated controllers you were integrating with, whether they were like 915 megahertz stuff or the 433 type stuff. Um, you had uh, it was not as like simple contact closure stuff that people were used to. So when you wanted to have, place, like the first thing I did was place nine dinner plates into a cabinet and make sure they're in the right location. That was not trivial. We actually developed a networking system, RS-45 based. Instead of running 10-foot digital lines like someone who didn't know what the heck they were doing would do. We built a little module that had a local processor on it, an RS-45 bus, and it would run the RFID module independently, and they could all be scanned. And when you you matched the magic numbers of all the plates having the right RFIDs behind them that all came together at once, then the maglock would open. Like far more sophisticated than you are with maglocks, read switches, and stuff like that. So that was like one of our really biggest claim to fames. Um, Leveraging that same system, it is still out there now in many places doing RFID match games, and eventually we did sequence games and um, things that you could actually like take blocks and spell out words with like if you had like letter blocks, so you could actually detect those different sets of letters that were spelling things out and had different things solved. It was all sorts of fun stuff like that by the time we got into it.
Sounds like you can get really creative in that type of role. Because I mean, I hear you talking about how are we going to engineer this to actually you know produce some sort of practical result, but like you're coming up with a game at the same time.
Right. So we really tried to stay out of the game business. I mean, certainly by the time we understood a lot of games, we were making suggestions and coming up with our own, evolutions. I mean, we were pretty much king of like, okay, well, we don't have that feature now, but we can add that feature for half cost, and go, maybe we would charge them a couple $100 and write a couple dozen lines of code, tweak some little thing out for them, and make them their special game. So we built up our library a lot based on demand like that. So it was not uh, we didn't really try to create a lot of games. It's funny. Escape rooms require like so many different skill sets, and like you need electronics guys, you need theater guys, you need game theory people. I mean, it's very is a very wide range of disciplines needed for a successful escape room. Artist, I mean, you want thing to look good, storytelling, it's all in there. So that was, but yeah, digress. But our niche was the electronics, of course. We stayed there in our lane.
Sure. I mean, we talk a lot about, collaboration across disciplines here at Altium, but this is like to the extreme.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, when we would build props, we would, I mean, so there were a number of props that we got in building. We built a lot of them for I would say a demo. It was a training exercise expo for Autodesk, and I mean, we were very competent in the woodworking kind of realm of things. But the painting, and it was we were trying to make things look like office furniture. It's supposed to work in a very office environment, so we were very comfortable with that kind of theming. But the artists that get involved with doing some of the scare stuff, incidentally, there's a big crossover with the haunt industry. Had no idea there's a haunt industry, but it's huge. I'm not into horror or anything, but the haunt industry is absolutely huge, and it actually fosters a lot of the escape room industry, where a lot of that stuff came over from. But yeah, it was yeah, that was not our thing. We were not artists. We made electronics work reliably.
That's so interesting. I never would have used the words haunt and industry in the same sentence, I don't think, but it's apparently it's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. The biggest trade show that fosters the escape room industry is called Transworld, and it is a 90% um, haunt industry. If you walk through the place at night, it's creepy because there are disemboweled bodies like all over the place, all fake, but and there's giant animatronic things shaking kids. I mean, it is a creepy place, but Transworld is every year in St. Louis, Missouri, and I think we expoed at three of them over the course of the whole thing.
Okay, so you were actually at this at you said Trans World um with with your company actually like exhibiting like a library of designs that you had created, and is it you essentially you're like, here's kind of the cogs in the machine, we give you everything you need to build the machine.
Yeah, we get all the guts. Yeah.
Okay, okay. That's interesting because I think a lot of people think, we're going to build a product and they are thinking, we're going to scale up to 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, eventually, in an ideal world, millions of units, and that's
Mhm.
how we're going to be successful. Um, it, I think that newer designers who may be, wanting to get out into this industry may not realize that there is actually a lot of work there in kind of the custom, low volume, even one-off type of work, and that's where it sounds like you guys really, really dominated, especially with this particular industry.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our, I wouldn't say competitors, but some of the people who are kind of early on in the industry and some of the people who ended up adopting our technology and leveraging escape rooms were those one-off guys. They would start off with, they might say, Dad had a great line. It was always the man in Land of the Blind, the man with one eye is king. And so, if someone says, "Hey, I want to build an escape room," and they know someone who's good with tech, they go bring him in, right? Next thing you know, he's, on SparkFun, Adafruit, buying a bunch of little, gizmos and put them together and writing stuff. And that's probably great until, he's gone. And that's fine, but that was the impetus for how, even we got in there. But of course, we wanted to provide something that was, more modular, feel replaceable, you know, being a company, being there and like, and just, for the record, when I got out of it, I sold to someone who was going to be there for my customers down the road because that was a really important a bit to me. Uh, but yeah, I mean, when you're speaking of breaking into this business, it's there's a ton of prototype work out there. People just have ideas or they want something built and experimented with, and there are other places that kind of need one-off electronics done, or even just someone who knows how to work with the existing hardware out there, the existing technology out there, and leveraging it. I mean, I would say engineers suffer from the I just want to build something, and you know syndrome. So you know, we really identified in that market that, and we had of course, we had the experience of, what production was like and how to build a quality product. Um, so we really tried to like help support those guys to go build better things so that the business guy who is like, scared of the ball of wire thing said, here, your guy knows how to use the badass controller. Like, and we're here, by the way, if he leaves and kind of thing. So I mean, it was kind of there's a lot of kind of give and take in that. So we really wanted to, you know, get people comfortable and take care of the hard electronics. You know, some of our biggest competition at the end of the day for the higher end things were PLCs, and PLCs are great, but I mean, ladder logic is as daunting as, if you don't know how to program, you don't know how to program. It doesn't matter if it's a PLC or if it's an Arduino or anything. If you don't have that skill set, you can write bad code to anything. So it's a little kind of anyway, this anecdote there, but yeah, as far as building production, there is I guess what I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of ways to get your customer started if you're trying to engage with them, and and trying to be trying to be engageable with your customers. When they ask for something, you say, "Hey, well, I mean, that's gonna cost you $50,000." Like, figure out a way to like work with them at $500 or even $10,000 to say, to earn that trust more slowly. And what I'm really trying to get to is that's actually the idea with escape room text was that's actually how we ended up growing a lot of the other work by having the product and so always showing that we could produce something. It actually a lot of other people came to us and said, "Hey, well, can you do this? Well, can you do that?" Because as a pure service industry, it was actually very, very, very hit and miss. You know, email, the website was out there, very word of mouth. But if the industry was good, then we were doing good. If industry was not, then we weren't. It's like the roots were very. Well, I mean, as I mentioned uh, previously, South Florida was not a great place for this kind of business because there's just not a lot of that kind of work around. Um, but you know, figuring out ways to do business with people and be flexible in that kind of realm is um, I think is very important and a great way for you to help people get started. Like just let someone do business with you for $100 and say, oh, this guy followed through for $100. Great, and you can do more afterwards.
I've recently kind of mused to myself that a lot of engineers who maybe have never worked in the industry, they're coming out of college, they have to try and find a way to stand out. Like entrepreneurship maybe is the path to at least getting into that dream job, and maybe you have to start out kind of like you alluded to with the smaller projects, lower dollar amounts, but if you do things well and people like you and you're able to deliver what you say you can deliver, um, and you can earn some loyalty, it seems to me like you can actually really start to grow and kind of carve out a name for yourself, and maybe later on parlay that into the job at the dream job at Ford, or General Electric, or the big corporate engineering job or something like that. That's It's interesting because I do get questions from designers who are in school, and they're just really interested in it. And They're saying, hey, I'm an engineer, but I'm in engineering classes, but I want to do, PCB design. How do I get into this as a career? And I think you brought up an interesting path, which is kind of that smaller project and then progressing larger kind of way.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's just building that relationship and that trust with people. It's funny in the software world. I've seen people where um, like they'll create some little library and they will make a web page about it and basically publish and promote themselves on this library and writing little, maybe this license, maybe it's open source, whatever, but like that becomes their calling card or their the zero price for zero entry, like, oh, here's what I can do, and they build this portfolio about what they do and stuff. Yeah, I mean, like for hardware guys, like build something really cool, and whether you open source it, give it away, build a library, build a tool that provides some functionality for someone, even if it's just something cool that you built for yourself, you know, have a showpiece and be able to practice with it and say, hey, well, I did this, and I can do this same thing for you too, and here's something like this I've done. By the time 5, 10 years in, it was like, okay, I mean, designing was like a big cut and paste game. Like, okay, and you want some of this, bring that over here. Okay, slap it together. Okay, route it and be done. Um, you know, the modules and stuff the modules and component libraries we built up over time. Of course, this is before Altium 365 had like every part you wanted already done up, but you know having our libraries was actually a really big competitive advantage for us. Like, I can toss together things much quicker than other people could. Of course, software still takes forever, but the software people. Hardware gets done. Hardware is done when you build that board. Hardware is done. Software is never done.
Boy, ain't that the truth. Although with some projects, I do feel like the hardware is never done. Also, it's funny too because the software folks, they have GitHub, and I, I'm sure there's something else out there that I'm not aware of because I'm not a hardcore software person. I mean, I can do some things in Python, but and I can do web pages and stuff like that. But I'm not like a software engineer. Don't get me on React or any of those crazy things that they do on the web. But you know, they've got GitHub. Like, what do we have?
Yeah, it's taken a long time. I mean, it's actually kind of it's funny because when I was going through all the escape room stuff, I I mean, really, I'll say even like 10 years ago, like when I heard Arduino, I'm like, yeah, it's for kids, it's toys. I don't want to touch it. Don't play with it. Like, yes, like when someone would come to me with their Arduino project, like, hey, can you make this the next version? I'm like, yeah, I'm not starting with that. That's great. You got that done, but we're not starting there. Like, I was arrogant about it. I was a little snotty. And but it really did come into its own. I mean, and the first stuff was really rough. I mean, the products that we built our stuff around was all Cortex M0 Plus stuff, you know, and what we made that thing do was actually quite amazing. I mean, pushing a little 32-bit micro was with 256K of flash was pretty crazy. Um, I can architecture of it. It actually was really cool. I was really happy with it. But yes, the evolution of the Arduino and Raspberry Pi world has been amazing. It has really commoditized and brought um, the YouTube double E, albeit a double-edged sword, for sure. Uh, into the fold. I mean, a lot of people can build a lot of crazy stuff. Um, that is just like, well, heck, crazy. I mean, that's insane. I mean, you know, I see it all the time now. I mean, we just engineer with giant Lego blocks. It's like I need one of these, I need one of these, and like I did a C# project one time. And I was amazed. You could write a couple hundred lines of code, and you're bringing Excel in. You're doing this. I read a simulator, and like it's all these just giant Lego block modules. It was pretty crazy. And hardware has become that way now too. And like I said, it's Adafruit, Spark, Fun, massive libraries of open source stuff. Um, you know, I am glad that there is a great open source, not open source, but a freeware uh, tool besides Eagle now. I can't stand Eagle. I think it's a terrible piece of software. I mean, obviously, I was spoiled on Altium for 25 years. Um, yeah, about 22 years or so. But I could never get I never had the patience for Eagle. But all the open source stuff in the community, all the open source community stuff is all Eagle. Um, and but obviously I've not used it because I don't need to. But the Altium freeware stuff is pretty cool. I've got some people who like using that, and yeah, that I mean it makes it really easy to share stuff and all the 365 stuff, setting this stuff around. Um, it's pretty slick to share and integrate and collaborate with people for sure now, which is way different than what it was.
You brought up with being kind of snobby about Arduino. I will admit, felt the same way. Not gonna lie. I kind of felt like, so is this thing like for high schoolers? Like, are people actually doing real stuff with this? But I mean, I've had to do shield boards for Arduinos, for stuff that's actually being out there and sold as products. So I had to stop knocking Arduino.
Yeah, it's an amazing. I mean, Arduino really is a. I mean, I dug into it a bit. I mean, so I do a lot of coding actually. I have done a lot of coding. I haven't done a lot lately, but if you've written any C, you know how much time you can spend trying to get all your headers to not be doubly included and types not to conflict and do all this other crazy stuff so that like the compiler, quote, takes it, right? And Arduino abstracted all that stuff. And I'm not gonna pretend I know all the details of how it does it, but my understanding is it basically takes every piece of source code and puts it in one giant file and it says compile, which seems so trivial and funny, but I mean, like that's all it took apparently. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool. And like I said, we built our entire controller around um, Arduino Studio is pretty terrible, although I heard they upgraded it recently. But I'm not done using it anymore. But yeah, we used to use Visual Studio with Arduino plugin, and it gave us a nice IDE with everything cross-linked and referenced, and that's what we built our product on.
I'm a little surprised more companies haven't kind of taken that approach, like having a plugin for those really popular IDEs to, bring all of their libraries into one place. I think like, I'll just use TI as an example. They have Code Composer, you know, and so they've got all their stuff in TI's world. And then like, let's say Xilinx, they've got, I think it's called Vivado. I'm not an FPGA developer, but I do FPGA layouts and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
Yes,
so they've got
yes.
their own little world. And then, you go over to Microchip, they've got, at least you can do everything and, you can do it all in Visual Studio Code, but then you're going through the MP
Right.
lab
Yeah.
and it just, kind of goes on and on.
Yeah. Most of them, I say most. I say many of them are Eclipse based behind the under the hood. And that one is I mean, you can download Eclipse open source and you do all your, Java kind of, non-embedded world type stuff pretty effectively in Eclipse. And then so but yes, I know a number of them are a lot of free scale stuff was Eclipse based. Um, but yeah, I mean, you're right. For a long time, everyone just like completely doubled down on their own IDE. I mean, remember RetroWorks? Did you ever use them? Use them or Raleigh had a great compiler, but they all had their own brand of IDE. Like it's like what combo does this, what combo does that, and between ARM and Eclipse, it made everything. And Visual Studio, Microsoft finally got on the bandwagon and said, "Oh, let's give everyone for free to make it nice to." That's a pretty fun compiler now. I do or use UI I like using.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much out there with embedded, and I think, you're really showing something interesting here about the experience of, I think, younger designers, which is, a lot of people are coming into this world through the route of coding and building
Absolutely.
software and embedded design, and it's such a great way to get kids to care about things like, well, electronics design, but they go the route of like
Hmm.
robotics, because there's so much development there. But at the end of the day, like, you've got a circuit board, you've got chips on here, you're actually putting that code onto that little piece of plastic and making the thing work. And I mean, those like eureka moments where you get to see the device, moving around and doing stuff, like those are so
Yep.
powerful. That was powerful for me, but I wasn't like my first stuff that I built, I wasn't, deploying code on it. It was just a little
Mhm.
amplifier board and I was doing stuff in
Yeah,
LabVIEW.
exactly. I mean, us, whatever, 50 years ago, we were doing ham radio stuff. Like when your project worked, like you heard someone else's voice come across it, right? Or you made a scanner, or you did something that made the little red light blink. But now so much is just the hardware is just. I mean, the level of integration in chips are is just mind blowing now. I mean, if you ever sat down and thought about what like an M0 plus processor does at a and 48 megahertz is just insane. I was, like I said, I was consistently amazed what we made this little guy do. I mean, it was serving fractional web pages, uh, controlling the games, doing process I/O handling, tons of I/O writes to different buses, and I think we were in a we were a single threaded world. I'm like, and it ran an Ethernet controller, and it just kept going. I mean, our biggest problem we have is we ran out of code space, and the new operator owner is moved everything to ESPs, which again they were a dumpster fire when they first came out, but now they are pretty much mainline. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's funny you call them a dumpster fire. But so much I mean, there's been so much effort put into these little platforms over the years, and now it's almost like it really is a viable option for a lot of different platforms, unless for whatever reason you absolutely need something custom because it's like high
Mhm.
reliability, or you want to hit class 3, IPC class 3 or something like this, or it just doesn't have that one little thing that you need to add to it, and so you go custom.
Yeah, I mean, the most of the things that, well, okay, like the things we did as an engineering company, 90% of it was there was some process control thing with some complicated I/O structure. I mean, I mean, we did some consumer stuff, but for the most part, we were very industrial automation type things. Whether it was doing custom controllers for lasers and production line type work, or like we helped a company do glass molding. Like they had all these crazy sensors and controls that they had to orchestrate all together. I mean, yeah, I don't. I mean, it would have taken a lot. The other thing is they need hundreds of them, right? They're in a production facility. The idea of maintaining, Arduinos and or even a BeagleBone or Raspberry Pi to now have all these different I/O points would have been like a giant, ugly mess. Um, Most of the people we really got involved with always either were successful or at least had intentions and actually wrote a blog about this, like that like this is what it takes to actually make 1,000. And do you have a plan to actually be in business? Um, I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I mean that was really the focus of what we had were working towards. And with the escape room stuff, we were happy to always just build one and hope other people would buy it. And if someone needed one thing, then we would try to say, well, let's build it and see what happens. And maybe someone else will buy it, maybe they don't. Just kind of go from there. But yeah, getting the volume thing is definitely an interesting question there. This is the problem when we go unscripted.
No, no, no. You alluded to what, like, as you scale to, or if you're going to scale to a
Right.
higher level with a product, instead of just like, let's
Oh,
say,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
you're an engineering company, you want to you want to transition out of just constantly doing custom work. And I mean, I have my own business, and this is something I kind of half plan for, half dream about, to where you can have, like, just a couple things that you sell consistently. And so I kind of wonder, like, how do you manage having maybe it is 1,000 units of inventory. Maybe it's 10,000. I don't know the best number off the top of my head. But what is the business plan around that look like? Because I think engineers that have a great idea and that want to produce a product and eventually get it out there to the masses and have it be used, consumed relatively
Mhm.
consistently, they need to think about these kind of things. Or they take these skills
Yeah.
with them over to their to their corporate job.
So yeah, that was actually probably one of the biggest things that um I had to really learn and then learn how to educate my customers because so as I'm trying to remember the timeline. I want to say probably 2000, like coming out of the recession, housing crisis stuff. Um, I started blogging a lot, and I started writing blogs to educate my customers, and they are also out there. The blogs are still live, but a lot of it was things like here are the impacts of volume. Like if you tell me you're gonna tell me if you tell me to design this thing to build a million or let's say even 10,000, that is a lot different of an engineering project than tell me you want to build 20. And like there's a blog out there I was just going through. It's like as far as steps for a customer, like what engineers don't realize. Again, we like to build, and I really had to like really take off the engineering hat of saying, "Hey, that'd be really cool to build. I really want to build that thing." To like, how are you gonna make money with this? Tell me how you're gonna make money with this, because I can build whatever I can build things all day long. Like, but if I rather put my time and effort into someone who can actually sell this thing and make money, who then I can support and build my business, as to suppose some guy who's literally has 100 grand. This has happened. 100 grand, has this idea, but I let him convince me that he had a plan, and at the end of the day, his plan completely fizzled, and he got $100,000 little device, and I'm like, what was your like? Tell me the rest of your plan, because this didn't work out well for really either one of us. I mean, I did all right, but I was hoping to go build 50,000 of these things for you. So like working when you start off in engineering, really just working by the hour. I mean, and as you're well aware now, um, working by the hour is just is not a great way to make any money in this world. Like if you're just working by the hour, like it's gonna be really hard to amass any sort of like I almost wealth is not the word I'm really trying to get to, but like any sort of financial independence really. I mean like so, you've got to be smarter in the things you're putting together, and that was actually a big growth part of me and my company, and having to go learn the business side and watching customers only have a part of a plan. I mean, I think in one of my blogs I'm like, if you're gonna spend $1 with me, you're gonna spend $2 or $3 launching your company, and if you only have the 50 grand from me, this isn't going anywhere. Like so I would say, okay, well let's figure out how to do a $20,000 job. Okay, what can this thing look like? Like, can you sell one? Can you get anyone to pay you money for this thing? And yeah, so I went down I went down all the paths of a lean startup. I became like Mr. Networker. I was hanging out at the venture forum, angel forum groups, and the venture capital groups. Really going on that side of things completely. Um, we did a lot of talks, startup weekends. Um, all that kind of stuff to really kind of get out in the community. Even helped found the Palm Beach Tech Association. Um, just trying to like bring all that stuff together. And so yeah, for there's a good 5 6 years there, I was really like very much out there in the community trying to um, one, learn, two, help out, give back, and like three, you know if I could help build a business out of it, that would be great too. But and some of that did happen too. So it was a very good very good phase. But yeah, if you ever go through, it actually started out as Score. They were giving me a lot of mentoring, and so I built. They didn't know about engineering, so the first five blogs I wrote were, I have an idea, now what? And it came across the like here's what your IP your portfolio looks like. Here's how you can protect it. Here's how you can get through the first phase. You know, spend a little bit of money, make one, sell one. Okay, now maybe someone will actually give you money to go, go build 10. You know, in the very much the lean startup canvas kind of mentality. So that is, I'll tell you that is like absolutely critical for anyone who wants to actually build a business as an engineer. And then the other giant recommendation I would say is Martin Gerber. I think it's called Entrepreneur's Dilemma. No, it's not that. I always get the name mixed up. But basically, the moral of the story is that there is a baker, and she's a great baker, and everyone says you should open up a bakery shop. And the problem is when you open a bakery shop, you're no longer a baker. You're a business owner. You're a manager. You're no longer doing the fun baking stuff. Like, and anyway, it's not Entrepreneur's Dilemma. It's I it kills me. Like, E-Myth, E-Myth, and E-Myth Revisited. If you're going to like, if you're going to take off the engineering hat and try to turn this into a business, please learn how to run a business because it's a completely different skill sets. And I, I, I don't know your background or how you came up with this thing, but I was an engineer, and I just thought being an entrepreneur meant just doing engineering work, and I was sorely mistaken.
Yeah, I think that people maybe lose sight of this idea that okay, so I'll use Mark Zuckerberg as an example, right? Like started Facebook from his dorm room, originally the Facebook, but like coded it and
Right.
everything. So he's the engineer, he's the guy coding this stuff, right? I mean, do you think now that he's still like sitting there coding stuff? No,
I hope
right?
not.
So
Yeah, no,
there's this
definitely not. Yeah.
right. So there's this big transition away from, being the engineer to taking more and more and more of a business role. And then eventually, I guess you're not, if you really grow to that scale, you're not doing really any of the hands-on engineering at all anymore. But in between there, I mean, it transitions from like, okay, I'm actually like building everything to, okay, now I'm going to hire someone to help with some of it. Now I'm hiring someone to help with most of it, and I'm doing QA. Now I'm
Mhm.
doing the admin above the QA, and it just kind of, you keep separating yourself and separating yourself. I guess the goal of, the entrepreneurial engineer is to not do engineering anymore.
Well, I would. So, I mean, I think that is a goal that looks attractive on this on the surface, but like I said at the very beginning, I was an engineer at 5. I was always very annoyed by the as a kid of annoyed like I think the UCF business school shirts said something like we buy the boats that engineers like build like that was always one of these like irky things because I always had a vision for being an entrepreneur making money and those things but I did not realize at that point in time what different skill sets they were. I mean, if you like to build and create technical things, running a business is not that. Um, it, I mean, granted, there are obviously, you know, a few very talented engineers who have made, millions or billions or, whatever but it's very few. And I think those people probably have um, a very, they had enough people around them to support that business vision and get them, get them, uh, propped up to and support around to do that. But as a solopreneur, and even just running, like I said, as a small group of small team of people, um, without having that giant, uh, either funding or whatever else, I think it's very hard to run a to really run a big business and try to stay technical with it. I mean, it's unless you're just tired of doing the technical stuff and you just kind of was a phase. That's that's my take on it. I mean, I'm doing all the engineering work now again, and I miss some of the business stuff. I miss some of the control and autonomy and authority and stuff. But I like building things. So maybe it's me, maybe it's anecdotal. I
No,
don't
no,
know.
that's fair. I mean, you get, I guess in a way, you kind of got into doing some of this stuff to be the independent control of your over your own life, but still doing fun techie stuff, type of person. And I think maybe and young engineers who want to get into this business and who want to start their own company, I think they should probably realize that, if you want to just build stuff all the time, maybe your scale will be limited. There's going to be a cap on how big you can get and
Sure.
still be able to
Yeah.
get in there and, wire up stuff in schematics and do the layouts and, plan for manufacturing and all that other stuff that goes into making an actual, PCB and, eventually a product.
Yeah. I mean, it is. You will have to choose this at some point in time. But yeah, it's a line to walk, and I think you know I will always consider Anidia and Escape Room Techs successful because I mean I did well. I mean there's no I mean by my definition I did well. I mean my own definition of success it was but the real part of my set the real success part of the experience was that I did what I wanted. I built like a ton more design cycles and a lot more experience than I mean, many other people would have had with 15, 20 years experience. And I mean, I just, I can see it when I can go, when I'm up against other people, I, I think I turn out pretty well. At least within my niche. I mean, certainly there's there's I got a lot into electromechanical integration and packaging and how these whole things fit and work together. I mean, there's a lot more to it than just a circuit board. Like this has to fit into something, and everything now is like, okay, maybe it's to be wearable, maybe it's to be flex circuits, and now it's like, okay, now you got to be in SolidWorks and make this thing. How's this fit and going to work, and how's that motor going to work, and so I'm pretty good mechanically and on software side, and you know, and then that was important to be able to take the customer's whole vision, because most time a customer doesn't just want a PC board. I mean, rarely will someone just say to you, "Hey, I really want this little green circuit. I want to go sell to someone." Right? That's not the way that conversation goes. I have this idea. I want to build this thing. It does this. Okay, well, is it handheld? Now you have ergonomics. Is it battery powered? You have battery life. You have low power levels. Arduino's not going to carry, not going to, dot all those I's and cross those T's for you. You may find yourself with a giant battery or power conservation issues or you know any other kind of little nuanced things that don't fit the mass market. And then it's got to be small. Okay, well, geez, I mean, how are you going to actuate this thing? How's that going to work if your entire supply chain is Adafruit and SparkFun? I mean,
Yeah,
these are real
absolutely,
problems.
absolutely. I think everything that you said is really, you've got some great lessons here for, newer engineers who are coming into the industry because there will be these newer engineers, and I mean, it's needed so bad. So much of the industry is not in our age range, and the folks that are younger than us, I'm dating myself a little bit. It's putting us in the same age range maybe, but the folks that are younger than us need to know all this stuff, and I think there's kind of these hopes and dreams of what they're going to do, but eventually the reality sets in that you need to do a little bit of everything. You're not just going to do layouts, and you might not be able to you know go totally hands off and do layouts all at the same time. There's scaling issues that you got to deal with. Manufacturing a 10,000 is not the same as manufacturing 10.
Yeah, if you want to be, if you're really going to try to put your expression, put your shingle out there, again, people aren't going to ask for a board. That board's going to have, it might go into a simple box, fine, but it's going to better start writing software because chances are, unless it's like a notch filter ghost detector, purely analog light, EM detector. There's gonna be some software in it, and it's gonna have to do something do something useful and interesting, and understanding how that works is useful and well, required for that matter. Um, but yeah, I mean, there are all sorts of challenges. I mean, the only other anecdote I'd share is I uh, I was in industry for probably about 3 years like, after college, and I do know that I had a couple encounters with a few people, and most of my work came from I say most, a significant portion over the years came from, and they were large production type work. As those people I met there went off to other companies, one guy was to three different places, and every time he's like, "So can you build this for me? Can you build that for?" And just kept coming in. And another guy was another entrepreneur type, and he did a bunch of special effects equipment. And he's like, "I need a controller for this. I need a controller for that." And we'd build them all the time. And like in this industry, the only thing I really found is that if I had maybe stayed in to a bigger company or any big company for that matter, I'm not really made for big companies. Um, Longer, I would have had a bigger network of people that would have precipitated out to maybe less fun, but probably a little more financially rewarding side to have a little more stability throughout the thing because it was a very up and down, depending on what was going on at the time. But of course, you stay in too long, then you get comfortable with get comfortable with corporate salaries, and then like, oh, I don't want to go take the risk. But I had a pretty good runway, and I was young enough to be naive enough with all of it. But yeah, it fed my family, and drove nice cars and had a house. So I mean, American dream, I guess. South Florida is not a cheap place to live, so did all right.
That's fair. I'm on the total opposite side of the country,
Yeah.
but I've often mused about moving to South Florida. So
Well,
I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed all of your time and found some success that you could appreciate.
yeah, absolutely.
Everything you brought up has been such great advice for designers, so I think we'll leave it at that. But if you're okay with it, we'd love to put your LinkedIn info in the show notes so that anyone who's young and impressionable can maybe get a hold of you and ask some questions.
Sure, happy to. Yeah, yeah, and we'll definitely get the blog link out there. Like I said, it's all out there still. Anidia is not operating, but I think the content's still valuable.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. We'll link to those posts as well. Well, thank you very much for being here. This has been such a great talk. Just for everyone who's listening again, we're talking with Gabriel Goldstein, formerly of Anidia Engineering and Escape Room Techs. This has been a great talk with someone who has a lot of experience developing one-offs and also who understands how to get things into volume production and who understands the business side of electronics. Gabriel, thank you so much again, and we hope to have you back again sometime in the future.
Thanks, Zach. My pleasure. Take care.
Absolutely. And to everybody watching, make sure to like this video, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date on future episodes. And last but not least, don't stop learning, stay on track. We'll see you next time.